Have you ever wondered why some marriages that once seemed so full of love slowly unravel over time? What happens when years of shared memories are overshadowed by bitterness, resentment, and the burdens of unspoken expectations? This story of Anna, a 63-year-old woman married for over 40 years, reveals the complexities of long-term relationships and the emotional toll they can take. Anna's story is not just about her struggles but a reflection of a universal question. How does love, once enough to overlook flaws, transform into resentment? As Anna's feelings of anger and frustration grow, her once-cherished relationship with John begins to crumble under the weight of decades of unmet needs, unequal responsibilities, and deep emotional disconnection. But this is more than just a tale of heartbreak. It's a journey of introspection, resilience, and hard choices. Why do some women, like Anna, remain in marriages they no longer find fulfilling? What role do societal pressures, family expectations, and the fear of loneliness play in staying together? If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. Part 1. Anna's story. Anna, a 63-year-old woman, has been married to John for 40 long years. Their marriage, once a foundation of love, warmth, and mutual respect, has now become a source of suffocating frustration for Anna. The transformation began slowly, but since turning 60, Anna's tolerance for John's behavior has evaporated, replaced by a deep and growing resentment. The man she once loved fiercely has changed beyond recognition. When they were younger, Anna's affection for John helped her overlook his imperfections. She forgave his shortcomings with ease, clinging to the love they had built together. But now, even the simple act of him walking past her ignites an uncontrollable wave of irritation, filling her with an unspoken wish for him to vanish from her life entirely. This constant anger and frustration have seeped into every corner of Anna's life, leaving her emotionally drained and on the edge of despair. Her mood is perpetually dark, her once bright spirit weighed down by a heavy cloud of depression. To cope, she finds herself increasingly reliant on medication. Her deepest desire is to escape, to break free from this suffocating life and start anew. In her heart, she dreams of leaving John behind, taking their shared assets, and stepping into a life of independence. But Anna knows the reality of her situation. Divorce at her age feels like an insurmountable challenge. She fears the judgment of her community, imagining the cruel whispers and ridicule from neighbors. The thought of becoming the subject of gossip fills her with dread. Worse yet, Anna is haunted by the impact her decision could have on her children. All grown and thriving in managerial roles, they've worked hard to build respectable lives. She worries that a divorce would tarnish their reputations, casting a shadow on their careers. This fear, more than anything, keeps her silent. She can't bear the thought of confronting John or even bringing up the subject of separation. Instead, she swallows her pain, trapped in a marriage that feels more like a prison. In her quiet moments at home, Anna often finds herself lost in thought, questioning why her resentment for John has grown so fierce. At times, the sight of him is enough to ruin her appetite, the frustration bubbling up uncontrollably. John has always been a rough, unpolished man. From the beginning of their marriage, he entrusted Anna with his paychecks, leaving her to manage their finances. But his contributions stopped there. He has never been one to share the burdens of household chores, leaving Anna to shoulder them all on her own. Years ago, when their son and daughter became parents, Anna stepped in to help. Seeing how overwhelmed her children were with demanding jobs and young children, she offered to care for her grandchildren, wanting to ease their struggles. It was a sacrifice born of love, but one that drained her completely. She poured her energy into raising 2 infants, all while keeping the household running. John, despite living under the same roof, offered no help. Day after day, Anna cooked, cleaned, and tended to the grandchildren, her body aching with exhaustion. All the while, John lounged on the sofa, his eyes glued to his phone, oblivious to her suffering. The unfairness of it all consumed Anna. Arguments became a regular occurrence as she lashed out at John for his selfishness. She begged him to help, but he refused, brushing off her pleas with indifference. His response only deepened her frustration. He told her she had brought this burden upon herself, that she decided to care for the grandchildren. These words stung more than anything. Anna felt abandoned, left to endure the weight of it all alone. The anger boiled inside her, and there were moments when she fantasized about throwing him out of the house entirely. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. When the grandchildren finally grew old enough to attend school, Anna thought her time of sacrifice had ended. For the first time in years, she had a taste of freedom. She began to dream of reclaiming her life, of traveling, relaxing, and enjoying the fruits of her hard work. But just as she was ready to embrace this newfound independence, tragedy struck. John's health, worn down by years of heavy smoking, took a sharp turn for the worse. Diagnosed with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, he was hospitalized, leaving Anna once again shackled to responsibilities she hadn't chosen. The life she envisioned for herself, the peace, the joy, the reward for decades of sacrifice, feels further away than ever. Instead of the independence she craves, Anna finds herself trapped in a cycle of resentment, regret, and unending duty. Her story is one of quiet suffering, of a woman yearning for freedom but caught in the web of love, obligation, and societal expectations. John had been a chain smoker for as long as anyone could remember, bound to his cigarettes like a moth to a flame. Every morning, before his feet even touched the cold floor, he'd light up his first cigarette of the day, the acrid smoke curling around him like a toxic embrace. He didn't care about the quality of the cigarettes. Cheap, harsh, and pungent was good enough for him. Anna, his wife, watched with a mixture of despair and frustration as he ignored her pleas to cut back or at least invest in better quality tobacco to reduce the damage to his health. But John was immovable, his stubbornness like an iron wall. He clung to his unhealthy habit with reckless abandon, unwilling to compromise even a little. As the years passed, the toll of his addiction became painfully evident. His once robust frame grew gaunt, his energy sapped by relentless bouts of coughing that rattled his chest like a rusty engine. Every night, Anna was forced to endure the sound of his violent hacking, each spasm reverberating with a grim reminder of his failing health. One terrifying evening, his coughing turned into a suffocating struggle. His face flushed a deep, alarming red, and the veins on his forehead pulsed with a strain. Panicked, Anna dialed for an ambulance, her heart pounding with fear. At the hospital, the doctor's verdict was grim: chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. The warnings were dire. John had to quit smoking immediately, or his life would hang by a thread. He nodded solemnly, promising the doctor he'd stop, but Anna knew better. As soon as they returned home, he was back to his old ways, sneaking cigarettes like a rebellious teenager. When she hit his packs, he'd storm out to buy more, lighting up in secret corners of the house, the faint but distinct smell of smoke betraying his deceit. Anna's patience wore thin, frayed by years of watching the man she loved slowly destroy himself. His casual dismissal of her concerns, "I've lived long enough," he'd say, "and if I can't smoke, life's not worth living," cut her deeply. It wasn't just his life he was gambling with. His relentless smoking forced Anna to inhale the same noxious fumes. She knew, from countless articles she'd read, that secondhand smoke could be even more lethal than smoking itself. Her resentment grew like a festering wound, inflamed by his selfishness and disregard for her well-being. The physical changes in John were impossible to ignore. The man who once had an air of freshness about him now reeked of stale smoke and neglect. His teeth were stained a sickly yellow, and his breath carried a foul stench that made Anna recoil whenever he leaned too close. Hygiene became an afterthought for him, and convincing him to shower or brush his teeth was a Herculean task. Most nights, he crawled into bed without washing his feet, leaving the sheets imbued with a sour, unpleasant odor that Anna was forced to scrub away the next day. Sleep, once a refuge, became a nightly ordeal. John's snoring thundered through the bedroom, a relentless roar that left Anna tossing and turning in frustration. She begged him to sleep in the living room, but he flatly refused, insisting the main bedroom was his rightful place. When she tried to escape to the couch for some peace, he'd pull her back, his demands for her company escalating into loud, heated arguments that pierced the quiet of their neighborhood. Exhausted and defeated, Anna stayed in the bedroom, sacrificing her best to avoid the endless confrontations. As the sleepless nights piled up, Anna's health began to crumble. Her days and nights blurred together in a haze of fatigue, and with every passing day, her resentment toward John deepened. She couldn't understand how someone could be so self-centered, so blind to the impact of their actions. It wasn't just the smoking or the snoring. It was the total lack of care for himself, for her, for their shared life. The man who once took pride in his appearance now smelled perpetually of age and neglect, a sour aroma that clung to him like a shroud. Anna often found solace in her friends, women who shared the same burdens with their aging husbands. They'd gather, venting their frustrations over cups of tea, swapping stories of unkempt spouses and sleepless nights. These moments of camaraderie offered a fleeting relief, a reminder that she wasn't alone in her struggles. But as soon as she returned home, the reality of her life with John hit her like a wave, drowning her in a sea of resentment and exhaustion. The love she once felt for him was buried beneath layers of frustration and despair, leaving her to wonder if it could ever resurface. How had their life together come to this? A battle between love and bitterness, hope and resignation. Anna longed for change, but deep down, she feared that John's stubbornness would never allow it, leaving her trapped in the relentless cycle of his self-destruction. When Anna was young, she dreamed of a future filled with warmth, laughter, and enduring love. A life with John where they would grow old together, hand in hand, surrounded by the glow of a love that had weathered the years. But now, the reality of her days feels unbearably different. She finds herself dreading the sight of her husband, his once familiar presence now a source of suffocation rather than comfort. Each day feels like a weight pressing down on her soul, a relentless cycle of anguish and disillusionment. The life she once envisioned has crumbled into something she can barely endure, leaving her questioning whether the fault lies with him, with herself, or perhaps with both. Her heart aches with the realization that the love she once cherished has been overshadowed by a growing resentment. Trapped in this unyielding storm of despair, Anna feels as if her life has become a prison, each moment dragging on like an endless punishment. Anna's story, though deeply personal, is far from unique. It mirrors the hidden struggles of countless women who, after decades of marriage, find themselves at odds with the person they once loved with all their heart. These changes don't happen overnight. They are the result of years of evolving emotions, unspoken grievances, and unmet expectations. Marriages, while built on love, are often tested by the passage of time, especially as couples enter their later years. The joyful intimacy that once drew two people together can slowly erode under the weight of life's pressures, unaddressed conflicts, and shifting priorities. For many women like Anna, one of the most profound sources of dissatisfaction is the inequality in family responsibilities, a silent burden they have carried for years. In their younger days, they may have endured their husband's flaws, dismissing them as minor inconveniences or forgiving them out of love, duty, or a desire to create stability for their children. But as the years pass and their strength wanes, the lack of support becomes an unbearable strain. The physical toll of aging, combined with the relentless demands of caring for grandchildren or managing household duties, often falls disproportionately on wives. When husbands remain indifferent, detached from these struggles and living carefree, self-centered lives, the resentment festers, transforming love into bitterness. In these quieter years, women also find themselves with more time for introspection. Free from the constant hustle of work and parenting, they begin to reflect on their lives with a clarity that wasn't possible before. They start to see the sacrifices they've made, not just for their children but for their marriages. Sacrifices that often go unnoticed or unappreciated. With this newfound awareness comes a deeper understanding of what they've lost. Their dreams, their sense of self, and their right to happiness. The flaws in their husbands, once overshadowed by youthful passion or buried under the chaos of life, now stand in sharp relief. It's not that love has disappeared entirely. Rather, it's that their priorities have shifted. They no longer wish to endure a relationship that diminishes them or disregards their emotional needs. This journey of realization isn't about giving up on love, but about rediscovering a sense of self-worth. It's about acknowledging that the love they once had has transformed, and sometimes, that transformation reveals cracks too deep to mend. For women like Anna, the struggle is not just with their husbands, but with the weight of a lifetime of unmet expectations, unspoken desires, and the yearning for a life that feels meaningful once more. Should Anna consider divorce? Deciding whether to pursue divorce is an emotionally wrenching choice, especially for someone like Anna, who has spent decades in a marriage filled with shared history, triumphs, and trials. Divorce is not merely the dissolution of a relationship. It's a life-altering upheaval that carries profound consequences, particularly for older adults. For Anna, the weight of this decision is magnified by a whirlwind of emotions. Fear of isolation, dread over the judgment of her family and community, and the harrowing thought of disrupting the lives of her children. The question, should I get a divorce, becomes far more than a personal inquiry. It transforms into a delicate balancing act between Anna's right to personal happiness and her deep-seated sense of responsibility toward those around her. On one hand, Divorce might symbolize liberation, a chance for Anna to escape the chains of persistent unhappiness and reclaim a life of peace, fulfillment, and emotional freedom. It might offer a fresh start, unburdened by the weight of resentment or emotional neglect. Yet, before taking such a monumental step, Anna must consider whether divorce is truly the key to solving her struggles, or if it's merely a way to sidestep deeper, unresolved issues within the marriage. Could the dissatisfaction she feels stem from long-standing miscommunications, a lack of emotional connection, or the erosion of mutual understanding? If so, might these wounds be healed through open, heartfelt dialogue rather than a complete severance of ties? Marriage, particularly one that has spanned decades, deserves an earnest attempt at reconciliation. A candid and vulnerable conversation could pave the way for rediscovering the love and partnership that once flourished. Both partners must be willing to examine their roles, adjust their perspectives, and confront the habits or attitudes that have created distance. While divorce might seem like the only way out, it's worth considering whether the path toward healing lies not in walking away, but in walking toward each other with renewed commitment and compassion. Ultimately, Anna's choice is deeply personal, but it's one laden with profound emotional and social implications. Whatever decision she makes, it must honor her truth while considering the intricate web of connections and responsibilities she cherishes. Only through self-reflection and honest communication can Anna determine whether to rebuild or let go, finding a path that brings her the peace and purpose she deserves. What can be done to preserve family happiness? Family happiness is a delicate treasure, not something that simply falls into place, but rather a living, breathing entity that demands constant care, compassion, and effort from both partners. Preserving this happiness is not about striving for perfection, but embracing the beautiful imperfections of a shared life. It begins with accepting change, an inevitable reality that touches everyone. Time alters not only our bodies, but also our perspectives, personalities, and priorities. These shifts can be daunting, but they also hold the potential for growth and renewal if met with patience, empathy, and forgiveness. Clinging to the expectations of youth can lead to frustration and disappointment, but viewing your partner with fresh eyes, acknowledging their fears, insecurities, and triumphs, can create a deeper bond than ever before. Communication remains the lifeline of any enduring relationship. Too often, couples fall into routines, assuming they already know everything about their spouse. However, even after decades together, there is always more to learn and more to share. Heartfelt conversations, where both partners express their dreams, concerns, and hidden emotions, can breathe new life into a connection that may have grown quiet over time. Listening with intent and speaking with honesty fosters trust, reminding both individuals why they chose to walk this path together. Equally vital is the need to spend time together, rediscovering shared passions or exploring new adventures. Life's earlier stages often pull couples in different directions, with careers, children, and responsibilities taking center stage. However, the later years offer a chance to reconnect. Whether it's traveling to places long dreamed of, learning a hobby together, or simply savoring peaceful evenings side by side, these shared experiences can reignite the spark that may have dimmed under the weight of time. At the heart of family happiness lies a profound truth. Marriage is not always perfect. No relationship is without struggles, but it is in these struggles that couples find opportunities to grow. Conflict, while painful, can lead to deeper understanding if approached with kindness and a commitment to resolution. Resentment, a quiet yet powerful force, often creeps into long-term relationships, especially when one partner feels neglected or unappreciated. For many, particularly older women, years of unresolved frustrations can lead to a sense of hopelessness. But it doesn't have to end there. Divorce is not the only option when love feels lost. Sometimes, love doesn't burn brightly. Instead, it glows softly beneath the surface, waiting to be rekindled with patience and intention. A story of renewal. Anne and John. Take the story of Anne and John, a couple who have weathered the storms of life together for over 40 years. Their journey is one of love, loss, and rediscovery, a poignant reminder of what it truly means to preserve family happiness. Once, they were inseparable, brimming with passion and hope as they built their life together. They raised children, celebrated milestones, and supported each other through challenges. But as their children grew up and moved away, a quiet emptiness began to settle into their lives. John, seeking solace in his hobbies, spent more and more time away from home, while Anne found herself increasingly lonely, yearning for the companionship they once shared. Resentment began to brew, threatening to erode the foundation of their marriage. and felt abandoned, and John felt misunderstood. They were drifting apart, each silently mourning the loss of what they once had. But instead of letting the distance grow, they chose to fight for their love. It started with small gestures, John setting aside time to have tea with Anne in the mornings, and encouraging John to share his thoughts, even the ones he hesitated to voice. They began taking evening walks together, reminiscing about their past and dreaming of their future. Slowly, their bond began to heal. They planned a long-awaited trip to Italy, a destination they had always talked about but never visited. The shared excitement of this journey rekindled the joy they had thought was lost. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. And John's story reminds us that love, even when it seems to fade, can be revived with effort and tenderness. Family happiness is not about avoiding difficulties but about facing them together, with courage and compassion. It is in these moments of vulnerability and understanding that relationships find their true strength. The essence of family happiness. To preserve family happiness, we must embrace life's changes, prioritize open communication, and cherish time spent together. Most importantly, we must remember that love is not a static emotion but a dynamic force that evolves. When nurtured, it grows stronger, illuminating even the darkest corners of life with its gentle, unwavering light. True happiness lies not in perfection but in the shared journey of acceptance, resilience, and unconditional love. The early blissful years of Anne and John's relationship were like a storybook romance, bursting with youthful love and endless possibilities. They met during a school dance, a serendipitous moment when Anne, a spirited education student dreaming of shaping young minds, caught the eye of John, a determined and passionate engineering student with grand ambitions. It wasn't long before their lives intertwined, and they quickly became inseparable, their bond fueled by the giddy excitement of young love and the shared dream of a bright future. Their marriage began as a beautiful chapter of hope and happiness. Together, they built a cozy home filled with laughter, dreams, and the cries of their 2 beloved children. John worked tirelessly as an engineer, driven by a desire to provide a stable, comfortable life for his family, while Anne selflessly put aside her aspirations to nurture their home and children. Their days were filled with countless joyful moments, from witnessing the first steps of their little ones to sharing magical family vacations filled with wonder and laughter. They were partners in every sense, cherishing the simple pleasures of family life and reveling in the sense of unity that held them together. But as time passed, the once vibrant household transformed. The laughter of their children grew quieter, and eventually, their voices faded altogether. Jack, their eldest son, left for college, embarking on his journey, while Emily, their youngest daughter, moved to a distant city for work. The home that once pulsed with energy and warmth now echoed with an eerie silence. The walls seemed to mourn the absence of laughter, and the air grew heavy with an aching emptiness. Though Anne and John remained together, and felt the weight of their changed lives pressing down on her with each passing day, she couldn't ignore the growing void in her heart, a void that left her feeling abandoned in the very sanctuary they had created together. In his retirement, John discovered solace in gardening. He poured himself into the soil, nurturing vibrant flower beds and lush greenery, finding a quiet joy in watching his garden bloom. But the garden that brought John so much peace only seemed to amplify the growing chasm in their marriage. And often stood at the kitchen window, watching him labor lovingly over the plants, her heart aching with loneliness. She longed for his attention, for the partnership they once shared, but John's new passion seemed to pull him further away. She tried, in her quiet way, to reconnect, and would ask John to help with small household tasks, like fixing the leaky faucet or tidying the yard, hoping to draw him back into the rhythms of their shared life. He would agree, distractedly, but his promises often went unfulfilled as he became consumed by his hobby, and tried to mask her sadness, enduring the growing distance with silent resilience, but each unspoken word deepened the hurt. Even when her melancholy showed in her gestures or tone, John seemed oblivious, lost in his world. One evening, determined to rekindle their connection, and decided to prepare a special dinner. She cooked all of John's favorite dishes, putting her heart into every detail in the hope that it might spark something. A shared memory, a moment of togetherness, anything to break the quiet estrangement between them. When John returned home, he offered a brief compliment, barely tasting the love infused in the meal, before disappearing once again into the garden, and remained at the table, staring at the empty seat across from her, her heart heavy with disappointment. Her efforts felt invisible, her love unacknowledged. As she sat alone in the dim light of the dining room, the weight of unspoken frustrations and unmet needs pressed down on her. A quiet storm of resentment began to brew within her, each unappreciated gesture adding to the ache that filled her soul. Yet, she remained silent, unsure how to bridge the growing distance between them, yearning for a way to rekindle the love that once burned so brightly. Once, and fell gravely ill, her body trembling with fatigue, forcing her to spend the entire day confined to her bed. Her strength ebbed away, leaving her desperate for comfort, for a kind word, or even a gentle touch. But John, her husband, seemed oblivious to her plight. His routine carried on as if nothing had changed. At dawn, he busied himself in the garden, pruning bushes and planting seeds, only stepping inside briefly for water, his face flushed with the satisfaction of his labor. The hours dragged by, each one heavier than the last for Anne, as she lay in silent agony. Evening came, and still, John had not noticed her absence from their shared life. Finally, as he prepared to climb into bed, and mustered what little strength she had left and whispered, her voice fragile, "Did you notice I've been sick all day?" Her words hung in the air like a plea for rescue. John froze, startled by her question, but instead of offering solace, his response was distant, cold. "Oh, why didn't you tell me earlier?" Without waiting for an answer, he turned back to his routine, leaving Anne to sink into a pit of despair. Her heart felt as though it had shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces, each one cutting deeper into her soul. The physical pain of her illness was nothing compared to the emotional ache of realizing that her husband no longer seemed to see her, to care for her, to love her. Days turned into weeks, and the chasm between them grew wider, and began to feel like a ghost in her own home, unseen and unheard. Though they lived under the same roof, it felt as though an invisible wall had been built between them, separating their lives. John's once warm presence now felt like a distant echo, a shadow of the man she had fallen in love with. Anne's loneliness became a constant companion, whispering in her ear that this was not the life she had imagined, not the partnership she had vowed to cherish. One afternoon, while wandering through the park in search of solace, Anne stumbled upon a group of women sitting beneath the sprawling branches of an old oak tree, their faces alive with joy as they painted vibrant landscapes on their canvases. They invited her to join, their kindness wrapping around her like a warm blanket. At first, Anne hesitated, her confidence buried beneath years of neglect and self-doubt. But something deep within her stirred, a flicker of the person she used to be, someone who loved color and expression, someone who dared to dream. Tentatively, she picked up a paintbrush, and with every stroke, she felt the weight on her chest begin to lift. Painting became her refuge, a place where she could pour out the emotions she had bottled up for so long. The swirl of colors on her canvas mirrored her journey: pain, longing, hope, and renewal. Each evening, she returned home with her spirit a little brighter, a little lighter, but John remained blind to the change in her. His days were still consumed by the garden, his evenings by idle distractions. He never asked where she had been or what brought the faint smile back to her lips. One night, as they sat across from each other at the dinner table, the silence between them became unbearable. Anne put down her fork and looked at John, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and resolve. "Do you realize that we're drifting apart?" she asked, her voice steady but tinged with pain. John blinked, startled by her directness. For the first time in a long while, he truly looked at her, and what he saw made his heart sink. There was a weariness in her eyes, but also a strength he hadn't noticed before. And continued, her words pouring out like a dam finally broken. She told him about the day she was ill, about the countless times she had needed him and he had been absent, not physically, but emotionally. She described the loneliness that had crept into her heart and the joy she had rediscovered in painting, a joy he had never even noticed. As Anne spoke, John felt a heavy guilt settle over him. He realized, perhaps for the first time, how self-absorbed he had been, how his neglect had wounded the woman he loved. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice cracking under the weight of his regret. "I've been selfish, Anne. I didn't see how much you were hurting. I was too wrapped up in my world to notice." Tears welled up in Anne's eyes, not just from the pain of the past, but from the faint glimmer of hope in John's words. That night marked the beginning of something new, a fragile but genuine effort to rebuild the connection they had lost. John started to ask about her paintings, to share stories from his day, to truly listen. And Anne, for the first time in years, felt that her voice mattered, that her heart was being heard. Their journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, it felt like they were walking it together. After that heartfelt and transformative conversation, John began to change in ways and had never imagined. He started dedicating more time to her, not just physically but emotionally, listening intently to her words, immersing himself in her thoughts, and seeking to understand her deepest passions. Anne's love for painting, once something he had dismissed as a simple hobby, now became a shared journey. Determined to bridge the emotional gap, John joined her painting class, a realm so foreign to him that he felt like a child learning to walk. Despite his lack of artistic talent, he poured his heart into every stroke, not because he aspired to create masterpieces, but because he longed to share in Anne's joy and weave himself into the fabric of her new life. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Their evenings spent painting together soon turned into cherished rituals. Amidst the scent of turpentine and the colorful chaos of their makeshift studio, they found not only the beauty of art but also the beauty of each other. Each canvas they worked on seemed to tell a story of their renewed bond, each brushstroke a testament to the love they were rediscovering. Anne's laughter, once a rare and fleeting sound, began to echo through their home again, filling it with a warmth that had long been absent. John's transformation didn't stop there. He reached back into the past, reviving memories of the days when they would pack a simple lunch, jump into the car, and escape to the countryside for weekend picnics. He planned surprise outings to explore hidden parks, quaint little towns, and charming local diners. Together, they wandered through trails they had never walked before, discovering not only new landscapes but also long-lost parts of themselves. With each trip, Anne felt her loneliness and sadness dissolve, replaced by the kind of joy and contentment she thought she would never feel again. For Anne, who had once felt invisible in her marriage, John's efforts were like rain to a parched desert. She began to realize that opening up and expressing her feelings was just as important as her husband's newfound willingness to change. John, on the other hand, discovered that true love meant stepping outside of his comfort zone, setting aside his world, and embracing hers. He learned to see his wife not just as the woman he had married decades ago, but as the vibrant, passionate person she had always been. The story of Anne and John is a poignant testament to the transformative power of communication and mutual understanding in marriage. After more than 4 decades together, they didn't simply drift apart or resign themselves to complacency. They confronted their struggles head-on, choosing to grow and evolve side by side. Through patience, vulnerability, and an unwavering commitment to each other, they rekindled the spark that had dimmed over the years. Their journey serves as a powerful reminder that love, no matter how weathered, can always be nurtured back to life. It shows that even in the later chapters of life, it's never too late to rediscover the joy, laughter, and intimacy that make a marriage truly beautiful. For Anne and John, their love story became a testament to hope, proving that with effort and understanding, the bonds of marriage can not only survive but thrive. And that brings us to the end of Anne and John's inspiring story, a powerful reminder of how love, patience, and understanding can transform even the most strained relationships. So, what about you? What have you learned from their journey? Was it the importance of communication, the beauty of shared experiences, or the power of stepping out of your comfort zone for someone you love? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share in the comments below one lesson you've taken away from this story and how you plan to bring it into practice in your own life. Let's inspire and learn from each other. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more heartwarming stories and valuable life lessons. See you in the next video. Red Heart.